sample form that we are going to design it. This is how they say it, but I enable some border here to understand that what is the location of the labels and the data entry here. This is what finally we are going to do. If you have any idea, let me know. Because you see, in our books, they said, for example, if the courses that you follow, she said you can put options here, like in a vertical mode. But here, for example, in the marital status and gender, I put it in a vertical or the horizontal way, either this or one of these options. It's up to you. Either you can choose it horizontal or vertical, but basically the form has to be this way. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to add a new file here in my folder. So when I click this, I have to write a name, say form test .html, right? You should not forget the extension, which is should be HTML, right? So everyone knows this option that typing this exclamation mark and press enter, so it will give you the basic form of HTML. And I know that by showing here the white color dot saying that this file is not saved, so I'm going to save it. And also I'm going to use uh, the go live extension for this test, so it's easier for us. As soon as you save the file, it will be displayed on the right side in this in the Explorer. Otherwise, we have to refresh it, save it here, and refresh it. It will be headache. Let's see. So, right. So I'm going to run this initial page view. I'm going to click Go Live. Right. So initially, it's not displaying anything. How did you get those codes at once? Yes, Hafsa. The code that I told you, the teacher explained to us. You have to press the Shift and number one, so which will give you a single exclamation mark. I believe that's exclamation. Just press enter, so all the codes come by default. Right? So once I save it, the page will be refreshed actually. Then here you can see the title. Only the title that for the moment we put it here. So I'm going to change the title to, okay, so I'm going to change the title to sample form. So and save it again. So it's saving it here. Oh, really? So it's saved already here. So before we start creating a form, we should put some heading at least. What is this, right? Just we will not start with immediately with the form. So I'm going to. So all the codes will be placed in the body tag. All our codes will be under the body tag. So I'm going to create. This is I'm introducing some. I'm going to introduce some of HTML text that will be very useful for you. So if you like, follow that method. Otherwise, you can do your own way. It's fine. So under the division, I'm going to put a header saying that again. Okay, so I'm going to put one header saying that sample form. So in your case, it will be like, for example, let's say we are going to fill what is that employee form or any form that you can just name it here. This is the heading that we are going to put. Then after that, after the heading, I'm going to put something called HR. I think many of you knows this one. It will give you a small line under the name, so it will be looks beautiful, right? I mean, simple way to put a line. We call it HR. So this will be in one block area, and I'm going to go also create another div. This will be for exclusive for the table. So I'm going to comment here. To insert a comment, you have to press Control forward slash. So when you click that, normally the commenting way will be look like this. This is where you are going to write your comments about this area. For example, I'm going to say I'm going to or form area. I save it. And also, I told you many times that whenever you start the coding might start unaligned. So do one thing, press the Shift, Alt, and F to align the coding back to the the right way. So you can see the start of HTML tag and ending, and the indentation will be maintained easily, right? And also I'm going to create one more div under this that will be you may wonder that why it's creating many divisions, because this will be easier for you later on, not only for the form and also for the later. If you want to put some styling and other things, this division will be very useful for you, right? So I'm going to create a form table inside. You know why we are using table to create a form? Anyone, any idea? Maybe you know some ideas, but you don't want to talk. To align our labels and text boxes, side by side. That is one of the easiest way that to include the table. So I'm going to, by the way, I'm not creating a form tag in the top. I'm going to create everything. I'm going to create a table first. After that, we will create a form, and we will move all the codes to the form. Right. So I'm going to create a table now. Table. These are the three elements under the table now. So we will be needing it later, but for us, we don't need that. But I'm going to tell you also what is the use of that. Most of the times, all your headers data will be here, and the body, this is what we are going to use it now in this area, and the footer. Since we are going to use only the table body, we are not going to specify any of this. I'm going to erase it now. I'm telling you that it will be useful for you later. Just keep in mind. So now I'm going to create a row, table row. Under the table row, but we have to create. Anyone, please? Okay. Right. So we have to create a table data. So I'm going to create one table data. But in the book, we saw something, but it's okay. I'm not saying that is wrong, but there is another way which is better than that. So I'm going to show you that method. Normally, what they say to us here, for example, first name, right? So it's created here, first name, and the first field is for the first name, and they are going to create another column which is asking the place where to enter the data. So this is what they told you. So to enter the data, we have to put the input box. So I'm going to also put that input box. And in the input box, there are many types, right? To enter the text, we have to say the type first. Type is equal to text. Text type. I will save it. So I get the input box here. In addition to that, and I don't know whether they mention it or not in the book, that every field that you're expecting the data to be retrieved, I mean, the moment that you submit your form in the back end, in the server side, the server should understand what type of data you're sending it and where to take what data. For example, I cannot say Sri Lanka is your name. I cannot say Colombo is your last name. So everything will be identified based on the ID property of HTML tag. So for this one, you have to specify ID tag. For example, I'm going to put ID here. ID is equal to F name, for example, or first name. I'm going to put everything on the simple characters, okay? So this one is not useful for us at this moment, but later on, after the next chapter, how to retrieve the data that is entered under the first name by using this ID. Without this ID, it's pointless. It will be like some data. I ask you, okay, can you give me your personal information? Then you just put your name, Muhammad, Sri Lanka, Colombo, 15, 157. So I do not know whether you are talking about 157 is the height or the weight. Nobody knows. But ID, by specifying the ID, right? For example, first name is equal to Muhammad, and the address is equal to this one, city, country, height, weight. So it's very clear. So this will be very important for you. And also here, it's difficult for me because it's sticking the name and the text box here. In order to understand very clearly what's going on with the table, how many columns, how many rows, I'm going to put a border field on the table during the design time. I mean, I'm still designing this form, right? We are here. Border is equal to 1. So you should know that, right? Why I enable the border, because I'm very clear that the first name is on the first column and the entry is on the second column. So it's working fine. It's great. Right. What are the additional things? For example, most of the time in HTML, they want you, when they click the first name, they want you to move your cursor directly to the text box. This is what they are expecting, the normal standard way of HTML form entries. For example, when you click the first name here, it should, the label, the cursor should move directly to here. It's much easier. Either you click it inside, it's fine, or if you click the name, it will take you there. So for this purpose, there are some properties called for. You have to say for. Sorry, not for this one. When I click the label, it should move the cursor to this. So at this time here, this TD, the first column that I entered here, it's just a data of a table column. So it's not advisable to put something like this directly on the TD. So it's much better to cut it and create a label. Inside the label, you paste it here. Now, in the label, I'm going to say for, this is the special thing that we are learning. This label for what? For this input. I mean, ID. I'm identifying. The label knows that this label for the first name. Now I'm going to paste it here and save it now. So what is the difference? Now I'm going to click the first name and automatically the cursor moved here and it's clicking here. It's much easier. This is the normal behavior that everyone expects from the designers. So this is very important for you. So this name will be here for the for field. Exactly the ID name of this one will become to the for field. And also in addition to that, you see, I'm going to save it now. I'm going to erase this. Something that we can add some additional things here in addition to the normal. This is already, this is perfectly all right. Whatever things that you did now, perfectly all right. So I'm going to get something called here placeholder. I mean, in this area also, I'm going to say something to them. Please enter your first name, for example. So this is, what is this? The placeholder that is holding this place, saying that please enter your first name. So when I click the mouse, still the text is there, but this is not the data in the text box. This is just showing something like a mask. Is showing to you that enter your first name here, for example, or you can, whatever. All depends on you. I'm saying first name here, or only first name, for example. Anything, whatever you like, only first name. It shows you. So the moment you start typing your name, that disappeared already. And when you erase it, everything, so it will appear back again. So it's much easier for the users, because in the modern forms, they don't give labels. They give you only text boxes because they have a nice styles and everything. So inside the text box, if you don't write anything, nobody knows what is first name and what is last name. So this is called placeholder. Second thing that one more thing that we want, I would like to introduce here, something called, let's say, can you fill, let's say you have a Google form that you are filling everything. Can you fill everything except your name? Is it normal? It's not normal, right? So I don't know who filled this data, either you or your friend. No one knows. So here something called required. There are so many methods, by the way, required. So if I say required, it will never allow to submit the form without entering anything, something to this area. There are so many things, but something that I'm giving to you. This is all what I'm going to I plan to tell you. So first is, we know that input type is the text. A ID that this is the introduced by me. I mean, you have to enter the ID. Y to put a label here, and when you click the label, I want the cursor to move to the box. And placeholder, it's something fancy and very interesting. And the required saying that it's we have to fill it to continue the form. Now let us wrap this table with the form. So
Brother,
now how to submit this? For example, only this entry we completed so far. So how to submit this one? So we have to have a small submit button. So I'm going to create a button also in the flow. So in the bottom area, tr, uh, I'm going to create a small td, and then what do you call this? Input button, right? Input. So type is equal to button, and then value is equal to submit. So I have a button also here. And the thing here, uh, the table now is like what do you call that? It's very narrow. It's stick together in the bottom area and the right to left and everything. So anyone can tell me what are the properties that we can use it here in the table to move the columns a little bit right side?
break,
Huh?
maybe beer, break.
No, no, no. In the table, no. I mean, what I mean is like the cell padding. Actually, it should display here, but I don't know why it's not displaying in the properly. So I'm going to use cell padding, for example, a 5. So now it's adding a padding. Anyhow, this is comes under the styling, but I'm just introducing here because when you do a lab practice, it's much easier to show them that it's very clearly cell padding. There's one more also something called cell spacing. This is a padding and spacing. Though there are two different things. Cell spacing, it's equal to, for example, also 5. I'm going to put that so equal to 5. So it's giving a space between cells. For example, I can show you by entering 20 here. So space between the cells, and the padding is different thing. So I'm going to just increase it to 5 only. I'm reduced to 5, so it's fine. So whenever you want to see the complete form, just remove the border. Okay, so I'm going to continue with where is this? With the border. Okay, spacing and padding between two. Let's say I'm going to remove this. I'm going to cut this. So what happened? You see the first name and the entry where we enter is all stick together. It's not nice. So that's why I'm going to give you this one. Padding and cell spacing. This is the spacing. If I give cell spacing here, there will be spaces between cells. This is actually quite enough for me. But I'm going to add also a padding. Okay, if you don't want to add padding, just increase cell spacing to 10. So it's already fine. This is enough. Okay, don't need to load it with many things. Just keep it fine, cell spacing. Now we have one column, and when we have a submit button. See, I introduced something called required. So what will happen when I submit it? The form action has to be method is equal to post. Everything is fine. ID is equal to submit. Type is equal to submit. Everything is fine. By the way, see, this is wrong. The type is submit. Then only it will submit it. This is the mistake that we did before. Before we call it type is button actually submit. So then it will automatically submit. You see here when I include something called required here. When I include the required here, when you submit, we are not validating this entry, but it's validating automatically since it's required. Very simple validation actually. Please fill out this field. So when I enter my name there, that's it. So it will be allowed now. So it will not be submitting actually, by the way. So until this, is it okay? We'll move to the next fields now. Anyhow, we structure the table, we put the heading, we put the line, and we created a table, and we create one field with the complete things that we want, and we put submit button there. That everything is fine. Now we are going to duplicate the codes simply to get the second name, address, email, or whatever it is. So I'm going to add also a last name. So what I'm going to do, Simply I'm going to copy this here because we don't like to waste the time. I'm going to copy this and paste this and save it. So we get one more copy, but I don't want it to be a first name. So I say a last name, and then here ID. Make sure one ID, it should be unique, right? The ID should be unique. So there will be no chances that ID should duplicate. So you will have a lot of errors later. So always create a last name. Always create a unique ID. So if it is a first name, this is the last name. So I'm going to use this last name, this ID to the four fields. So only last name and save it. So fine, it's changed to last name, only last name. Now in the first name, they use colon here. I mean, everywhere they use colon. It's nice also. I'm going to use that. So it's fine. And make sure that everything that you're typing is perfectly all right. So the third thing they said, use the address. So I'm going to use address here. Same thing, I'm going to copy now and paste it here and save it. Instead of last name, I'm going to use address in the ID address. The same thing, I'm going to copy this and paste it here. Uh, your address, right? So far these all are required. So when I click submit, it's saying please enter your name. So I'm going to enter Mohammed. Submit is saying please enter the field. So last name. So last name and I enter submit again. It's also validating every field one by one automatically. So in the address field that see most of us we have long address, right? So it's not nice to include it in input type text box. So actually they call it text area. So I'm going to create that. I'll show you the difference between these two. After that, you decide which one you plan to use it for your here for your test. So I'm going to use something called input. Sorry, a text area. Text area. The same thing like text area. Uh, it's like exactly the same thing actually. The same thing that we have to give ID here. Call for example address and text area. Simply save it. You will see that here. You see this thing. It's expandable. The address that you can decide it here. You can expand it here, width and height, and how many number of columns it want to include, how many number of rows you want to put, right? Here in the text area, the good thing that you can say how many rows you need to be. For example, now I'm saving it down. It's just like a normal text box, but little wider than that. So you can say how many rows you want. Rows, I want four rows, for example. And I save it here. It's occupying four rows here. See, one row, two row, three row, four row. The same thing that you can also include columns here. Because let's say 50. That is deciding the width of this file. So I also added columns here. The same thing that you can use placeholder and required. It's up to you. The same thing that we are using placeholder and required. By the way, this placeholder and required is optional things that if you like, go for it. If you don't like, just leave it. Then later on, don't tell me that because you introduced it because of this one I got confused. No, it's completely your own wish. But I'm telling you. So you decide now which one you like to use. Either you like to use the text box or you want to use the text area. It's up to you. And one more thing that if I am introducing it, I don't know whether it will be fine. There is something called title that's common for all the fields. I mean, for the first name, for the last name, address, and title. Title is like a tooltip text. It's showing you, please enter your address. And when you save it, and when I move the mouse over this, and it will show you, please enter your address there. But in here saying, please fill out this field. Please fill out this field because we include a required keyword. But here it's showing you a title, the things that we're entering in the title. Please enter your address. If you want your forms to be very fancy and you are giving a proper instruction to the user that using your form, you can use this kind of things if you want, but it's not compulsory, but it's a additional things, right? So and also the next thing is that we are going to add the email. So I'm going to keep this line as well. I mean, single line address and the text area. So you decide, because I'm going to put it here. I'm going to put the source code also in the YouTube that you can take it. So I'm going to add now an email. Sorry, I forget to do something. What is ID? The text area. And I'm going to paste also this. Why it has to be a different. So when I click this address, it should be here. When I click this address, it should be there. The cursor should move there and cursor should move here. So it's working fine. Okay. Now we are going to add an email. I save it, and then ID should be email, and then your email. And I'm going to copy this and paste it here. By the way, for the email field, the ID, the type should not be text, should be email. Do you know why that we have to use email? If you use the text also, it's not a fault. But when you are validating the email, if you say type is email, it will validate based on the email format. Let's say normally the email format is abcd at uh, xyz.com or .lk, whatever it is, or dot many dots. So the format has to be in this format. Yeah. So we know that the email format usually comes like this. For example, Muhammad at yahoo.com. So if we enter this way during the validations, if we say required here and then the type is email, it will validate whether you have a, let's say I'm going to cut this, and then I'm going to fill the data here, and data here, and submit. It's saying enter the email here. So I'm going to enter something like, and see, please input an at in the email address. So at is missing. So I'm going to put at here and submit. It's still saying that it's incomplete. So actually it's looking for this type of email. I mean, the looks like it should be like an email validations. When I submit, that accepted already. So I'm going to stop it and run it again. I'm telling you, all right, that if you specify email, it has to be an email format. And what will they say? The zip code. So I'm going to add also a zip code here. Zip code. I'm going to copy this. This is the easiest way. And zip code, there are, I think, there are types for zip code, I think. But if you use, okay, anyhow, we will use it as a text, it's fine. By the way, if you use, there are a lot of types like address and other things. If you use that, it will be very complicated. So much easier, go with the flow. But for the email is fine, for the text is fine, some other things is okay. In case if we want to learn something more, just go to the W3 school. W3 school, and this place will help you a lot of things. For example, you search whatever you want to search, div and HTML div tag. So they said they will explain to you definition and usage of this one. Definition: a division or a section in HTML document. If you want to uh, divide the codes into something, and also a section. But for example, you see, I want to collapse all the forms under the form. I click div only, and it's completely closed. But this is not the original usage. But I'm saying to you, it's much easier also to divide and do the next code. It's easy for you. So this is the thing. Yeah? If you want to know, for example, text area. Why you use text area? I have no idea. Go to the search and paste here and search and HTML text area tag. What is the use of that? And not only this area, you can search everywhere in the internet. They will tell you what is best and what are the benefit of this and what is the minus points that if you use this one. So, right, let's go back to this. Now we will come to the radio button. You know the default function of the radio button? Choose one option out of many. That is the best answer actually, right? Right. So usually gender, there are male and female. What is mark button, bro? Okay, anyhow, the gender is a male and female, or let's say they are asking some questions. Do you like apple? Yes, no. One of these two answers, right? So I'm going to create that. I'm going to create one more tr. Going to align it again and then create a td. What is this first is gender. So now, see, now I'm not going to use a label for this. I will tell you what. Gender. So gender comes here, but this is not a label, right? It's just a data in the table dt. In the dt, I enter only gender data. Or you can use a table, a label, but we are not going to use the for loop, for option here. See, for example, I'm going to copy this line to save the time. I'm pasting it here. Instead of a zip code, I'm going to use gender, but I'm not going to use the for loop. Do you know why? Why I don't want to use the for property? Because if you say gender, there should be two options. So when I click gender, where you want me to move the cursor, to the male or a female, or if you want to put it by default male, it's fine. It's okay, no fault. But it's not fair, right? So I'm not going to use a for loop here. So I'm going to create one more td there. Now you have an option here. Either you want to put your radio button side by side or top to bottom. I mean, one below of each other or side by side. It's up to you. So let us see in both ways and we will decide which one you like to take it. So I'm going to include now a side by side. So I'm going to put input, sorry, what is this? Yeah, input type. The type is equal to radio. Uh, Value is equal to male and yeah, that's it. So I'm going to put the radio here and then value is equal to male because when I click this one, I'm telling the server that I choose male, but the name is not there. So what they do it here, they type it here called male. This is what the book says. It's fine, beautiful. So when you click male, it's fine, it's okay. So let's do the female part as well. But what they do in the book, let me see also because yeah. So what they did in the book, in one line, they create a gender. That's fine. The next is a male, and they create one more tr, and you don't need to put. Okay, if you let's say we put it also, we will see. So this is the time that we will see the row span, right? So where is the female? See now we have two boxes here, but we call it gender. So in order to avoid the duplication of the gender, I'm going to put this td empty, right? So right, it's fine. If so, later when we remove the border, it will be fine. So this is what they taught you in the book, right? If I don't mistake. Yes. So this is what they say to you, but according to me, it's not so nice. And also they said name. Name is male and female. So they call it here name is equal to male, name is equal to female. Right. So this is what they said exactly. So, but here, what I understand, you see, you can click both. This is the mistake that I found last time. You should not be able to click both. So it should be in a group. I mean, one group, this male and female button will be in one group. Either you can choose male or female. This is how it should work. For this one, you should put the name area, the name value, both should be having a same name. Then only it will work as a combinations of radio button. So here, it's wrong way of putting male and female. You have to put gender, for example. It's a gender group. I'm calling it. This is actually it's all is my option. I'm saying that this should be a gender group. Now, if you click male And if you click female, the male will be removed and the female will be there. So the name, always make sure that the name should be exactly the same. It doesn't matter whatever value you're giving to them. I want to put XX, still fine. So I can choose one of them. So now you see, again, if you submit your data to the server doesn't identify your value, whatever you selected. So can you tell me why it will not identify? Because we did not specify the ID field here, right? So I'm going to put the ID field here. ID is equal to male, for example. ID is equal to female. The ID has to be different, but the name has to be the same. So they will work like a one group. Now here you see gender here. It's not nice. I want them. Uh, I want these two TDs to be in one, working together. So this is the time, and the TD. I'm going to say that row span is equal to 2. So this gender column will occupy 2 rows and work like one row. So I'm going to save it now. So it's one row. Yeah, in this case, you have to remove this TD. So it will be fine. Right? This is one way of making it. So I'm going to, there are 2 rows actually. So the first TD of the first row and the second TD of the second row will be joined together and it will be one TD because I use row span is equal to 2. And the first row, the second TD will be there. In the second row, only second TD will be there. There will be no first TD because that one is added to the first TD. Is it okay, right? The TD row span. If you have some problem, let me know. And this is one way. So you say gender, but for me, according to me, it's much better to have a side by side. It's much easier since you have only 2 options. It's much better to have it side by side. It's very clear, right? Okay. And one more thing that you see, you notice it if you go to other sites and make sure that how that radio button works. When I click the mail, the text here, I want to be checked. This is normal behavior of the standard HTML way. When you click female, you should check female. But here they are forcing me to click on the small area on the circle. When I click this only, it's clicking. It's difficult. Some people they cannot point it actually. So we have to give them a very nice user-friendly way. So click this one and click this one. So what do you have to do? Can you tell me, someone, please? Since I say to you, when I click male, it should be ticked here. When I click female, the text in this area should be clicked here. So the same thing that we have to do, we create a label here, right? And then we use for property, which is carrying the ID of this one. So instead of saying plainly here male in the TD, I have to include as a label and addition here. And the label I have to say male and simply for is equal to this label, male label for this male ID radio button. So I'm going to put this one and save it. And the same thing that we have to do it for the female as well. So I'm going to copy it. So what I'm doing now, in order to click the text and point the cursor to the other place, I'm going to use a label here rather than putting a simple. Can I explain it? Yes, sure. See now when I click the mail here, see even I don't need to click. When I hover the mouse on the top of the text, the radio button is already blue color. You see that? You notice that? When I move it here, female is blue color. When I click the letter, it's automatically clicking here. This is the same thing that what we did here. When I click first name, it's clicking here. When I click last name, the label here. When I click the label, it's pointing here. Address coming here. Address coming here. Email coming to the email. Zip code, zip code. For the gender, if you want, let's say, I want gender usually to be male. Fine. For the gender, what I have to do? I have to do this way. So here I said when I click gender, I want it to be male by default. They call it like a default value. It's easy for the people actually. When you click gender, immediately click male. I want to female, or when I click male, changing it. This is user experience. It will be very easy for the users. So it's up to you to choose it. But for me, I prefer to occupy one line, and male and female will be side by side. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to show you all the options that I'm going to. I'm not going to use a span. Okay. So I'm going to use this way. So where is my gender? It's missing because of the additional TD given. Save, yeah, save it. So it's up to you still, the user experience. Either you want to put it top and bottom or right and left. It's up to you. I'm going to use this way. By the way, the ID has to be changed because we cannot use the ID. It's duplicated. So I'm going to say a male 2 and male 2, female 2, and ID is 2, and for 2 and 2. I'm just changing it. The group here, by the way, you see that when we copy it, we group it as, like, if you click here and if you click this, it will be disappear. So the group has to be different as well. Second group, second group, first group, first group. So this code you can identify easily. I'm going to change to male 1, and female 1. So save it. So this is a separate group. Either you choose one of these or one of these. It's fine. So let's go for the checkbox. In the checkbox now, what they say, they gave us two options as well. They call it subscription, newsletter, and magazine. So, okay. So I'm going to use one line. It's up to you if you want. So we don't need to repeat the code. So I'm going to just copy entire thing here, right? Paste it. Keep everything. First of all, change your input type. Type is not ready anymore. It should be checkbox. I'm going to put it also a checkbox here. For the checkbox, there's no name. It's not necessary to specify the name field because it's not. There will be no grouping. Checkbox means you can check everything. If you have a two option, you can check both of them, or you can leave both of them. It's up to you. So I'm going to remove the name field here. No need the checkbox. If you want to specify, go for it. No issues. I want to save it now. Save it now. So you get the. So here the values are newsletter, magazine. This they call it subscription. Subscription, and then this is newsletter, magazine, newsletter, and magazine. Make sure that the ID is not good actually. So let's change the ID. Value is we'll just call it the same thing as a value because in the server it has to be identified. You have to give the name reasonable name. Otherwise, just give male and female for everything. It's not nice. So you can say newsletter and then magazine. And the second thing that whenever you're giving a value, it's much better to give the values in uh, simple characters, not in the capital. Don't mix the characters. Much easier to give it in the simple characters. The ID, you can call it newsletter. It's the same thing as ID. Magazine. Great. And this one, I want, when I click the subscription, I want the newsletter to be checked by default. So I'm going to give this one. And that's also, if I click the newsletter text, it should be check that. If I click the magazine text, it should. So it's working fine now. So I have to choose magazine or newsletter. Now I'm going to save it again. When I click subscription, by default it will be tick the newsletter or magazine, whatever you like. If you have more than three of gender, I mean the radio buttons or the subscriptions, much better to bring it from top to bottom up. Don't make it on the right side. It's not nice anymore. If you have a multiple, it's up to your design, but still it's recommended more than three or four. I mean, if it's occupying too much on the width, it's not nice anymore. So follow that. Okay. So is there any issues with the checkbox? Actually, checkbox is one of the easiest thing. The thing is the radio button. It's a bit confusing. So they say include the city as a drop down box. So again, now we are going to create the TR, and then as usual TD, call it city, but I want it to be a label, and then city. Right. And then now another TD. I'm going to create that. This is a bit different than other all things because other all are input types, but this is a select type. So we have to create something called select. Again, as usual for every HTML item, so you have to give ID. So I'm going to give ID. All what do you call that? City ID. For the meantime, this is enough. So inside this select, we have to give how many cities that you want to add it to the drop down box. So I'm going to add, that is called option. How many options are you have? How many options you plan to add? Options one, for example, I'm going to say, okay, let's add Colombo, is it okay? Colombo 01, Colombo. So I'm going to add many. Well, let's make it a country. I mean, it's that nice country. And then we call it Sri Lanka, India, Maldives. Can anyone tell me the spelling for Czechoslovakia? It's very difficult, right? So I'm going to use the simple called Pakistan. Okay. So now when we click it, we have the options here. But here, the option is not, we should not use it in the simple way, that something like this. In the server side, whenever you select Sri Lanka, you should tell the server that I select Sri Lanka. Under the option, we have a property called value. Then you have to say Sri Lanka. So it's a value property. So I'm going to something called example. I want Maldives should be, so they call it selected. If you say selected, see the Maldives here as an initial option. And you remember something, right? Whenever we want to click city and it should move the cursor to the Maldives, so you can say again the fourth thing, for is equal to country. So see, the moment I click, but anyhow, you cannot see it when you click. You cannot see that it's highlighting here. But standard way, you just follow that. One more thing, that's in addition, if you want to know something, for example, you have India, but you don't want the user to be select. Now I can choose Sri Lanka, I can choose India, I can choose Maldives, I can choose whatever I like. So in case if you don't want India to be available on the drop down, you can say disabled, for example, additional things. So when you click here, see the India is, even if I move the cursor, you cannot see the India. It's not selectable anymore. So now let us do some small styling. I don't want the form. I don't want this lines anymore because I'm completed already. I don't want to display the line. So go there, go back to the table and simply remove the border is equal to 1 and save it. It's beautiful. You see in the submit button, if you want the submit button to be in somewhere else in the center or somewhere else in the other box, you can move it. I don't want it to be in the first column itself. It's not nice. Okay, create a TD and folded it so it will move to the second column because that the border will help you to identify it actually. So now the submit button in the second column, but if you want to move into the first column, you can simply remove this line TD. Now let's say we'll do some small modification on that. I'm going to add a border to this table. So I'm going to use a styling here, the table itself, style and border. I'm going to say solid, solid border, or we call it double, solid 1 pixel, and I'm going to say black. So this is a border. Anyhow, we will remove this one now. So now you can see the border around this in case if you want that. And instead of solid, you have called double also here. If you put double, you cannot see any difference here because the thickness of the border is too small. So I'm going to add it to 5 pixel. So now you see the double lines. Okay, now let's come to the question that he asked. How can I center the table, right? So this is always in the left aligned. So this is also you have to use a style here in order to center the table. You can do one more thing as well. You can say the table, you can say width of the table 100%. That is another thing. Width is equal to 100%. Now table is occupying the entire page if you like that way. So you don't need to center your table. Or no, I don't want it to be something like this. I want it to always the table should float on the middle of the things. So remove this. And here, this is what I told you. These divisions, you can say style, alignment, or not the text alignment. Align is equal to center. You can do that as well. So now the table always floating on the center, but it's not necessary to do that. I mean, you see, sample form is here in the left side, the table is in the center. With a style, you can do so many things. So this is the questions that we asked, right? Wait, I cannot see the messages as well. Div to separate paragraph. No, you can use div for anything, bro. Anything is fine if you want to enter the paragraph, or if you want even here, for example, if you want, let's say I don't want my submit button inside this, for example. So I'm going to add additional submit button, but always make sure the submit button should be inside the form. Okay, we should not keep it outside because it will not submit anymore. It will work only inside the form area. So if I don't want to put my submit button in the table itself, so after the table, if you want, create a div. It's not necessary to create a div. You can just directly put the submit button. It's up to you. So I'm going to put one here. It's outside. It's centered by the way now. Now it's not nice. It's sticking with the table. So I'm going to put small BR on this. So in the middle submit. It's up to you. It's all is your, now it's your visual idea. I like it to be centered. Fine, go for it. But still the submit will work. I'm going to submit now. See, it's asking to fill the data. That means it's working. And also you see the city button is very, it's not nice. I mean the width is not enough. So you can go and width is equal to 150 pixel. So now it's increasing the pixel size. I mean the width of the distance. And I want to also tell you that one more thing here. Instead of using an input type is equal to submit, you can also create something called button. Right. And then say submit. So there is another submit button. It's working exactly like the input type. That's also another way of doing it. So if you want to see what's going on around this object, how to move, you can explain about the adding hyperlinks. Yeah, hyperlinks, yeah, is very easy, right? Okay, I don't know whether we how many minutes. 4 minutes remaining. So once it's end, we will end it actually. I'll show you something here. Inspecting elements. See if you want to see what happened to this, what is the alignment, what styling that we implemented to this, you can click this. See when you highlight this div, it's occupying almost entire width of the page. And when you click that, you can see what are the styling things that we implemented on this one. We say text alignment is center. If you want to see, if I put it left alignment, what will happen? Left alignment, so it will be on the left side. It's moving on the left side. If it is right alignment, it will be on the right side. And also, see, when I click the table here, table, you can see what is the margin is 0. I didn't apply any margin. There's a border 5 pixel. You remember that I put double. When you click, see, I put the border double 5 pixel and black. If you want to see how your form will looks like in a different color, you can choose the color here. So that's how it looks. So if you want to put a different color, that you want to show a nice, that's it. So now you can copy this color, and or you can copy the entire style and you can change it on the form itself. Instead of saying I want to say a black color, it's this. Then we take it from the developer environment and changing it here.